Today we're diving into the story of a space company with grand ambitions, countless hurdles, and a future that still hangs in the balance. Astra. This isn't just any space company. It's one that's been scrappy, bold, and yes, often teetering on the edge of success and failure. A journey of discovery, missteps, and sheer determination. Today, we'll explore Astra's origins and the pathway it took to reach its current uncertain position. Astra's story didn't start in 2016 with the familiar name we know today. To really understand where Astra came from, we need to go farther back to a small quiet startup called Ventions LLC. Founded in 2005, Ventions was dedicated to developing advanced technologies for the aerospace industry. Their focus wasn't on launching rockets yet, but on building propulsion systems, essentially the guts of a rocket, without the rocket itself. Chris Kemp, the future CEO of Astra, wasn't involved with Ventions at this stage. Instead, he was busy with NASA, working on projects that pushed the boundaries of what space exploration could achieve, including helping to launch NASA's first cloud computing initiative. Ventions, meanwhile, was quietly working in the background, experimenting with small-scale systems, almost as if they were laying down the seeds for something bigger. And that bigger thing arrived when Kemp and Adam London, a key figure at Ventions, crossed paths. The pair saw the potential for something bold, a spaceflight company that wasn't chasing after the big, glamorous missions to Mars or grand colonization efforts. No, they saw a niche, a gap in the market where small satellites, microsats and cubesats, were often left waiting for a ride to orbit, pushed aside by larger payloads. In 2016, Ventions evolved into Astra. The shift from a quiet tech developer to an ambitious spaceflight company was striking. Astra was now ready to aim for something Ventions had never attempted: complete rocket development. But their mission wasn't just to send up any rockets. They wanted to deliver small payloads to low Earth orbit, and they wanted to do it frequently and cheaply. And that's where the democratization of space came into play. They envisioned launching more often at lower costs than anyone else. The roots of Astra's approach can still be traced back to Ventions. The expertise in propulsion systems became the foundation of Astra's rocket development experts. The expertise in propulsion systems became the foundation of Astra's rocket development efforts. But it's one thing to design rocket parts, and it's another entirely to put those parts together and make them fly. Their first attempts were, well, less than inspiring. Their early rockets, Rocket 1.0 and Rocket 2.0, never made it to space. They were test rockets, more about getting systems in place than achieving orbital success. And the company's real test would come with Rocket 3.0, and that's when Astra's story took a dramatic turn. Rocket 3.0 launched in September 2020. It was a huge moment for the company. Years of development, countless hours of work, all came down to this launch. The rocket rose from the launch pad, lifted into the sky, and then crashed back down. A failure, no question about it, and a costly one, both in terms of dollars and credibility. But Astra didn't give up. They tried again. Rocket 3.1 lifted off in December of that same year. It got farther, but again did not make it to orbit. Now this is where things get interesting. Most companies facing two high-profile failures in a row would have been on the brink of collapse, and the space industry is notorious for being unforgiving. One mistake can set you back by years, and two failures, that's often the end. But Astra had something going for it that kept it alive: its vision. Astra wasn't about big payloads or grand missions. It was about frequent launches. They weren't trying to beat SpaceX in terms of scale. They were trying to provide a service for customers with much smaller payloads, and this meant that failure didn't carry the same weight for them. In fact, they took these failures as learning experiences, fuel for the fire, if you will. When Rocket 3.3 finally made it to orbit in 2021, It felt like a victory, a hard-earned victory. Astra was finally a space company that had successfully reached orbit, and yet even that success was a bit of a double-edged sword. Sure, they'd made it to orbit. In the space industry, inconsistency is dangerous. It erodes confidence, especially for a company trying to sell regular, low-cost access to space. Let's talk about that business model for a second. Astra isn't trying to secure massive multi-year contracts like other space companies. Their main customers are organizations that need quick access to space. Think about government agencies like NASA, the Department of Defense, and even commercial clients from industries like telecommunications and defense. Astra is not hauling huge satellites or doing deep space exploration. Instead, they're delivering small payloads quickly and cheaply. At least that's the promise. Astra's business model revolves around making space accessible to small satellite operators. The pay-per-launch system they've developed is straightforward, and, in theory, it's quite clever. But there's a catch. Space customers, whether they're governments or commercial players, demand reliability, and Astra has struggled to provide that on a consistent basis. It's not just about the cost, although cost is a huge factor in the space economy. It's about the balance between affordability and dependability. Astra's real differentiator from competitors like SpaceX or Rocket Lab is their price point. By focusing on smaller payloads and frequent launches, they aim to offer a cheaper alternative for customers who don't need a Falcon 9 or Electron to get their satellites into space. But again, that inconsistency comes into play, and the more failures Astra has, the harder it becomes to convince clients to trust them with valuable payloads. And then, of course, there's the regulatory environment to navigate. Space isn't the Wild West, despite how it sometimes seems. Astra has had to ensure they comply with various international and domestic laws, everything from licensing requirements to safety regulations. They need approvals for launching rockets, spectrum use for satellite communications, and even environmental impact assessments to ensure they're not adding to the growing problem of space debris. As the frequency of launches increases, so does the risk of creating more space junk. They've publicly stated their commitment to minimizing their impact on the space environment, but the reality is that every new object placed into orbit increases the risk of collisions and debris formation. And debris in space doesn't just disappear, it stays there for decades, posing a threat to future missions. Now let's take a step back from the technical and regulatory challenges for a moment and talk about Astra's future. This is a company that's trying to claim its stake in the rapidly growing space economy, and while they're currently focused on launching satellites, they've got their eyes on bigger horizons. There's talk of entering the space mining industry and even supporting space tourism one day. But how realistic are these ambitions? In the short term, Astra's focus will likely remain on improving the reliability of their launches. Reusability is a major factor here, and while they've explored it, they haven't yet reached the level of efficiency that companies like SpaceX have achieved. Every time Astra loses a rocket, they lose money. Money that could be going into future developments, like reusable systems or more advanced technologies for space exploration. Astra also faces stiff competition, and not just from big names like SpaceX, Rocket Lab, Relativity Space, and even newer players are all vying for the same market. Companies and agencies looking to launch smaller payloads into low Earth orbit. And these competitors have something that Astra doesn't, a more proven track record. Astra's pricing structure may be attractive, but when you're sending a satellite worth millions of dollars into space, reliability matters more than saving a few bucks on the launch. Astra is carving out a niche, albeit a precarious one, in a market that is still growing. The space economy is booming, with new opportunities arising in satellite internet, asteroid mining, and even lunar missions. If Astra can weather its current challenges, there's a chance they'll emerge as a key player in this future economy. And let's not forget the wonder of space itself. Astra's journey has been full of ups and downs, but their drive to succeed in one of the most difficult industries in the world is nothing short of amazing. Spaceflight is a constant struggle, and Astra's story is a reflection of that struggle. They faced failure head on, picked up the pieces, and tried again time after time. It's that perseverance that keeps them in the game. The space industry is a marathon, not a sprint. Companies like Astra might stumble out of the gate, but that doesn't mean they're out of the race. They're still chasing the greatness that comes with successful spaceflight, and in an industry that requires as much tenacity as skill, Astra might surprise us yet. So, what do you think? Does Astra have what it takes to overcome these challenges and secure its place in the future of space exploration? Or are they destined to be remembered as a company that aimed for the stars but couldn't quite reach them? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Like and share this video to help it launch, and join our Discord server in the description. This has been Gene of the Space Guild. End transmission.